The pandemic redefined the scope and speed of digital transformation. What was previously thought as difficult to do has been done in a matter of days. More and more often we hear about digital delivery instead of digital disruption. How the post-pandemic digital transformation landscape looks like. Today, I have a great pleasure to host Karol Mazurek, Managing Director of Accenture Poland. Karol, thank you so much for accepting my invitation.
Thank you, Iwona, for inviting me to discuss this important and very interesting topic. Thank you very much, and hello, everyone.
How are you, Karol?
Great, especially that we have a fantastic weather in Warsaw today. So summer is finally there, and we are recovering from lockdown.
That's very true. So you are still before or already after your holiday?
Before. I'm just waiting for the end of school here, and then we will see.
So you have something to looking forward.
Yes, exactly.
Perfect. Karol, coming back to our discussion. Post-pandemic discussion about digital transformation seems to be more pragmatic. What is your perspective? What do you see within your customers and partners?
Okay, we have discussed about digital transformation during the pandemic many times, so I don't want to repeat clichés, but basically before the pandemic we were discussing digital transformation. During the pandemic it really happened, and as you said in the introduction, it happened within days because all of the sudden organizations had to move their employees from the offices, and actually, especially in regulated area, my customers are mainly in financial services. In financial services, for the years before pandemic, the restrictions on how to access the data, where employees can work from, were like higher and higher. So then, in the matter of days, cybersecurity departments, security departments had to change the way they fought, had to change the strategy, and had to enable the safe operations for the employees working from their homes and from many different places, because as we all know, after a while we started not only working from home but from other locations. So yes, the digital transformation happened, and the question now is first how to make it sustainable and how to continue, how to make it long-lasting. And the other very important question is how to make it secure, because now we are not talking about moving the customer to digital channels. They are already there, and they are, let's say, getting used to being just in the digital world. And this, of course, raises new threats. This starts new opportunities for hackers, etc. So we need to make this digital world safe, secure.
Absolutely. So when we look at the transformation, we see many different phases. One is technological readiness, I would say. Another one is operational readiness, how we adjusted processes within our organization to be ready and to be able to answer to the changing demands and changing customer needs. What you see is at the moment on top of executives' agenda?
Okay, so a very good question, because technology is very important, and technology was the enabler. And honestly speaking, if we had this situation with pandemia 10 years ago, we wouldn't survive it that well from the business perspective. So probably we would have much more disruptions and issues for the businesses. So we would see many companies being not able to continue their business. Technology now enabled us to switch to remote working very quickly, to switch to serving the clients also in a remote way, and also establishing or continuing cooperation with partners within the ecosystem without having to meet one another. So technology was the enabler. Without technology, we would be in much worse situation. But now the questions which appear after a year and a half in a situation of remote work is how do we motivate the team first? How do we motivate the people? Even at Accenture, at one moment we realized that over last year we employed over 1,000 people and none of them has spent a single hour within the office. So they only met their colleagues over Teams and other team working tools. And company culture is built over a cup of coffee in the corridors, in the discussions with colleagues. So now the big question is first how to motivate, how to keep the engagement of the team when they are working remotely. Because what we see is that the organization now plan for restarting the work in the offices, for coming back to the offices. But on the other hand side, what is common is that there is not a huge enthusiasm within the employees to do so, because they got used to it. They grew new habits. They learned how to work and how to structure the daily routine without having to commute to their offices. So probably the world that we will see in front of us, it's still a hybrid world. So people will continue working from home, and we will have to live with that. So that's one thing: how to motivate, how to keep the engagement of the people, and how to build a team spirit in this hybrid world. The second is that, as usual for recent years, the legislation, the regulations are not really following the changes in the world. So also now we are discussing a number of initiatives also to change the legislation to enable usage of digital signatures in a wider scope, digital exchange of documents, contracts, etc., and cooperation between entities, I mean, with the customer and between companies in a digital way, in order to be also prepared for a future event like that, because nobody says it's the last pandemic ever. We have to be prepared. And while in many cases companies are serving customer in a fully digital way, inside they are not fully digitized. So if you look at the back offices, there is usually a lot to do, and it's sometimes a result not of the fact that they didn't want to change. It's the result of the fact that, for example, regulations do not allow them to get rid of paper in the processes. So we will also see the change in internal operations of the companies in order to digitize the processes, in order to be able to work in a hybrid mode and to be prepared for this type of events.
Karol, let's talk for a little while about our general readiness to drive digital transformation. You mentioned many times how skills and mindset and culture is important. How you would assess today, our capability to drive the digital transformation on our side and also when it comes to the market itself?
Interesting question again. Well, on one hand side, as we discussed previously, a lot has happened. But on the other hand side, when we are comparing Polish market to other markets, let's take cloud usage or AI usage, we are still at early stages. So there is a lot to do. We expect wave of changes coming with hyperscalers being available in Poland with their data centers. So there will be cloud migrations, but the cloud migrations will also involve implementation of new ways of operating, of artificial intelligence, etc. But in order to enable this, or in order to stimulate this, well, first, yes, we need to have skills. We need to have skilled people across all pyramids. So they, let's say, top management or the boards, they need to understand the value of new technologies. They need to understand how to measure, because like a straightforward thinking and just applying business case methodology sometimes is not enough to justify thinking about digital transformation. We need to have, of course, skilled engineers, and well, before pandemia, we were actually assessing different scenarios. All of them were rather pessimistic, what's going to happen and how the business will react. And actually, we were thinking that there will be a lot of unused manpower on the Polish IT market. Reality proved otherwise. And additionally, opened Polish labor market to international opportunities. So when people are working from home, they can work for anyone. So what we need to do is first educate people on our side, but also make a lot of efforts so that the education is for the purpose of Polish companies or Polish local economy. And for this, we need to educate not only people, but also regulators, supervisory boards, so that they understand that the businesses, they have to change in order to survive in the longer term or be competitive in the longer term. We need to show the value also for the customers of the digital transformation. I mean, this is the easiest part because they already they already see that. But well, we thought we have let's say enough skills, but now what I see is it is never enough. The demand is getting higher and higher, and in order to move fast and in order to transform, let's say, the whole market quickly, we need to educate more and more people and also take care of them so that they are working basically for us and for the local market.
Yeah, so it should be more like a continuous process, not like ad hoc basis initiative, right? Yes,
exactly. And as I said, it should be across the whole organization. I think that Polish banking sector, for example, gave the other sectors kind of a direction how it could look like with the Polish Cloud Initiative, where first, let's say, there was a standard of cloud migration prepared, which was created by the organizations who compete with themselves on a daily basis. That's one thing. But the other thing was the education program. So the program in which board members, managing directors, and also engineers could receive information. What is the value of the transformation? How to execute it, etc. And this type of approach could be replicated by other markets because, well, my thinking is that digital transformation in the longer term cannot be used as a competitive advantage. We will all have to be digitized, and we'll all have to be the digital world. How we use the digital, it's a matter of each organization. So organizations can compete in their products, services, but they all will have to be digitized. So being digital will not be a competitive advantage on the market
anymore. We live in a digital world, yes, right? So it's a part of our reality. But you mentioned one very important thing, that how to remain or become competitive in the market is still on top of many executives' agenda. And this is strictly related with the business resilience. It's another buzzword we hear more and more often nowadays. But I would like to talk a little bit more about the practical approach. So, first question, business resilience, is still something which we try to approach very tactically, operationally, or you see this more as a strategic direction of our customers?
It is a strategic direction now because, and I like the word resilience because it gives the wider picture, because prior to pandemia, we were all focused rather on continuity of the businesses, and if you ask any of the companies, they would say that they have business continuity plans, they are ready for disasters, disruptions, etc. But they were all focusing on disaster, on type of disaster which actually happened before that. So everyone had a business continuity plan which was dealing with a situation like my data center is destroyed. But all of a sudden we had to deal with a situation that my employees are not in the office and my customer cannot come to my branch or to my office. And the organizations had to switch to this new world quite immediately. So there are a couple of concepts which could be described as let's automate the organization as much as possible, so that in this type of situation we can operate even though the employees are still at home, even though the customers are reaching us not by coming to the physical branch, but just by calling us or by using the digital channels. So let's automate as much as possible. And in here, we are starting, for example, seeing more and more interest of using machine learning or let's say automated decision making systems in order to streamline internal processes, in order also to kind of move employees to the tasks which are rather exceptions than basically daily routine jobs. The other thing is that this happened before pandemia, that the boundaries between markets were blurring. But now if you look at what's happening on the market, everybody's looking for the new revenue streams, just to make sure that when the crisis comes, there is something that still works and enables us to have a cash flow and for the business to sustain. So we talked a lot about ecosystems of the new era, or the businesses which are rather a compound of like building blocks coming from different industries. Now it is happening. So what we will see is also kind of I would call it API-based businesses, where companies talk to each other using well-defined interfaces, and one single process or one single procedure from the customer point of view can be done with many different partners from the supplier side, so many different companies, and this customer may not see it, that there are different players on the way. So it's very interesting, and also implies a lot of work on the integration side, but also on the security side.
Again, security, yeah, absolutely. I think that when we talk about business resilience, we can talk about many different dimensions, right? And you mentioned all of them. We can talk about strategic business resilience, financial, operational, technological, but also organizational. Do you see from your experience that one of these dimensions is more important than another? How you would advise customers to look into business resilience?
It's difficult, to compare the importance between those areas, because sometimes they are very different ones. So actually, what we are advising and this thinking we are already seeing on the market. One is, let's say, to fix the basis and make sure that internally we are as resilient as possible for interruptions like the pandemic or like the lockdown. So in here, organization work to be prepared for the unpredictable, for changing the operating model in a very quick way. But it's kind of internal stuff and fixing the basics. So that's one thing which is, let's say, critical, because otherwise we may risk our operations entirely.
Foundation has to be there.
Foundation has to be there. On the other side, and also very important one, is looking for the new business models and new revenue streams and new ways of cooperation on the market. So it's rather this kind of a strategic thinking where we can find new sources of growth outside of our traditional business.
Absolutely. And to this point, what we see as well and we observe is that idea of innovation is evolving as well. And I see, based on our experience, that our customers approach the idea of innovation in many different ways. How do you see it from your perspective, from your interactions with customers?
Innovation, it's something that has to be included in a daily work. For me, it's a thing like quality, it used to be some time ago, or security. You cannot create a department of quality. Quality has to be included in everything we do. The same happens with the innovation. So if the organization creates a department of innovation, probably there will be no innovation. It's again a little bit of cliche, but organizations have to enable the innovation, but which also means to be ready for those innovations to fail. And what we see is more and more focus on the creativity of the people, because even the difficult times like we faced recently, it showed or it opened a new areas of the creativity with the within the teams, when people had to work in a completely different environment, in a completely different ways. And they had to be, in many occasions, very much self-motivated, self-inspired, and self-managing. This opened, let's say, new levels of creativity within the teams, and we have to maintain that. We have to reward people for being creative, for questioning the status quo and questioning the processes, even though those processes were proven or live for years now. So we need to allow for that. And also, and this is a little bit coming to the previous part of the discussion, look outside of the industry that you're dealing with. So what we see is a lot of inspiration coming from sometimes very unusual industries. So, for example, retail companies are looking for financial services, seeking for innovation, how to enable smooth payment experience, etc. And on the other hand side, financial services are looking for the retail and e-commerce to inspirations how to serve the clients and how to make them delighted, because in this digital world as Professor Płoszajski said, satisfied customer is just beginning. I mean, the customer had to be delighted with the services. Otherwise, probably they may look for other supplier or provider of the services. And what is typical for this world, quite rarely you can get a feedback what happened and what was wrong. And sometimes even the feedback was actually there was nothing wrong, but I was not delighted.
Absolutely. I think that customer demands are higher, and our main objective should be really to overachieve those expectations. But I do believe, and I agree with you, that in the past we tend to look at innovation in very traditional way. In many cases, what is the innovation in product or service or solution we may offer? And nowadays we see that we look into the new business models to build kind of environment which we can combine many different vertical solutions, vertical services, and create something completely not existing in the past. So I see that as well. Talking about innovation, what are the key enablers of innovation, or most important?
Prior to the pandemia, we've delivered many, let's say, data-driven projects for the organizations, but actually pandemia even made the power of the data or the meaning of the data more important. And coming back to Piotr Płoszajski, he said that let's not talk about big data, let's talk about big understanding. And companies are now looking for different ways of extracting the information they have internally. There is usually in big organizations a lot of data, and we are gathering more and more of them. And frankly speaking, not really used by them. So I remember someone said, coming back to the big data, with the question that, you want to deal with the big data, but what about your small data, the data that is inside the organization? And we see that now, given that we want to automate processes, we want to streamline the processes, and we want to operate seamlessly with other partners, the importance of the data is really critical. And this is also where innovation happens. So with new tools, with new skills, with the new possibilities that the analytical tools and cloud-based analytical tools especially are giving us, we see a lot of innovation happening in this space. And I believe that the topic or the sentence that the data is the new oil is already a couple of years old, but the pandemic actually made the data really a new oil. And I think that a lot will happen around the understanding and knowledge about the organization based on analyzing and qualifying the data that we have.
Karol, thank you so much. I believe that you have so many valuable insights that we could talk about. Our time is very limited today. I believe that our discussion can bring very good tips and highlights to our customers and to audience. Thank you for the time today.
Thank you again for inviting me. Thank you for raising this very interesting and important topics. We are living in very interesting times and times of change. And I wish that we will meet again and discuss how many of the ideas that we've discussed came true, were implemented, and what's next. Thank you again for the discussion.
Looking forward to our next discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.